Good morning, everyone. At least you didn't have to shovel off your cars to get here. So welcome, and we have a quorum. Ann Nielsen has a cold, so she will not be here, but when her PowerPoint comes on, I will do it for her, and she also has a video to show. So first, I'm asking the RAC members for someone to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th and February 4th. Barbara?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from January and February.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And just a point of information on the January minutes, we added one goal for those people that do have the RAC 2019 goals. We added just one, and that was under 3, and now it's 3C, to increase interaction with the Brooksby Village CRC, or the board, as some people refer, 3 or 4 times a year. It was just brought to my attention that the postal office, starting in January, has a new rule that when your mailbox is full and then they come to try to get more in and can't, they will remove the mail and bring it to the post office for you to pick it up. I know when I was in continuing care, I had a neighbor come every 2 or 3 days to pick up my mail, so that's something you might want to consider doing. If you're going away for any length of time, either have a neighbor pick up your mail from time to time, or fill out a yellow card at the post office and they'll just hold your mail until you return. So for me anyway, this was new information. Today I just want to highlight a particular person who has done so much for our community, and he is our resident director, and that's Ken Lawrence here. And we do have some new residents, Ken, so for people that don't know Ken, and he unfortunately has put in for retirement at the end of the month, and he has done so much. He's been in this particular position for at least 5 years. So it's just some interesting facts about Ken. He was born in Sydney, Australia, and then he spent his youth in South Portland, Maine. And after attending Harvard College, Harvard Law School, the London School of Economics and Political Science, and a Linacre College, did I pronounce that right, in Oxford, he began to practice law in 1963 at Governor Thomas E. Dewey's law firm in New York City. For 22 years, he practiced law in the area of antitrust, healthcare, banking, and environmental law at the Boston firm of Coate Hall & Stewart. In 1990, he was appointed by Governor Dukakis to the Massachusetts Appeals Court in Boston, in which he served as Associate Justice for 17 years, retiring by constitutional mandate in 2007. He has since served as off-counsel Assistant Attorney General and Administrative Law Judge for the Massachusetts Attorney General Office in Boston, and the General Counsel for the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts, co-author of the Massachusetts Practice Series volume on professional malpractice, and an expert witness in legal malpractice actions. And I just think that we're so fortunate to have him serve as our resident director for 5 years. So thank you so much, Ken. Promise that he will still stay quite active here in Brooksby, and we're happy that he'll also be a consultant to us as time goes on. And I would just like to share the timeline for the recruitment to replace Ken, and no one really can replace Ken. But March 8th through 11, a recruitment letter will be distributed to all residents. March 21, there'll be a resident information meeting. April 12th, the applications are due. April 24th, there'll be interviews. April 25th through May 1st, there'll be reference checks, notification to candidates, and background check. May 9th through 13th, there'll be board approval. May 13th through 17th, there'll be a resident notification letter. And June 1st, the DLC term begins, and we certainly will welcome this person and have this person make a brief presentation about their role. So I just wanted you to know that. And you got a handout today about the listening post. We're so pleased that people are beginning to come and talk to us. It's very important because it follows what we're trying to do and find every avenue to communicate with everybody. And Barbara, would you like just to add a few words about the listening post?
Particularly because I had one question about the poster you got today. They are put up in three different places in each clubhouse. There should be one in the lobby area someplace. There should be one in the dining lounge area someplace, and then they are also posted on the bulletin boards, the main bulletin boards in each building. The poster is up all the time. Sometime over the weekend, or if we're busy over the weekend, hopefully by Monday, before the following Wednesday, the person who is doing the listening post will change the poster out and put in who's doing the listening post at a particular clubhouse, what time they will be there, so that we have some flexibility, and where specifically they'll be sitting. So please go to them. Hopefully they'll walk around and introduce themselves if they're not busy and nobody is talking with them at the time. So please welcome them into whatever group you're sitting with while you're waiting for dinner or while you're down in the lobby. Let them know what you like about Brooksby. Let them know how things are going for you here. And certainly if you have an issue, no matter how small, bring it up. At some point I will be reporting back on some of the concerns that are raised and what we're doing about them, because a lot of them are small things that we can change ourselves without even going to management. Some of them need to be taken to management. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. And now we're going to hear from our Vice Chair, Dick Richmond, and he is going to talk about the concern form closures.
Thank you. So far, this month, we have closed 5 concern forms, one of which has been open for about a year. I'll go through them one by one. In summary, first is number 5, the treasure chest. A resident was concerned about toxicity, alleged toxicity of polystyrene number 6 food service containers and the fact that they are not recyclable. We've looked into it, and we understand that there is no danger to residents, no confirmed danger to residents from use of number 6 polystyrene food service containers. They are, however, not recyclable, and we have a community policy to maximize our recyclable implements, especially those from the dining area. Also, a resident was concerned about insurance I'm sorry, folks, I have jumped ahead. I started at number 5 to talk about treasure chest. The treasure chest status was challenged as to what is it? And our response has been that you can go to page 42 of the resident handbook for a good description of what the treasure chest is and how it operates. Resident has asked for a legal opinion on that, and we find that there is no requirement in our residence and care agreement to provide legal opinions to residents on questions such as this. With respect to the question about insurance for volunteers who work in the treasure chest, we believe that it is individuals' response to understand their risk and to arrange for any insurance that they feel is appropriate. I've not heard a response from the resident who was responsible for this concern. We feel that it should be closed, and many times, occasionally, we have events where the resident and the RAC and management can't agree, and so we have to agree to disagree and record everything, and that's the case for number 5. Numbers 27, 28, and 34 had to do with the food service containers. We feel there's no danger to residents from their use. We do believe that these containers should be retired and that the community should begin to use containers that can be recyclable. We understand that the Erickson management has a committee that is looking into this enterprise-wide, and an answer will be forthcoming. Perhaps not as quickly as the resident who submits these concern forms, but they're working on it. They do want to make all our food service items recyclable if possible. And finally, number 38 had to do with the Tai Chi exercise group wanting to use the exercise room. There was some difficulty or disagreement between that group and the fitness manager. The group has decided to set aside plans for that. They will reassess the Tai Chi group's needs in April. So as a result, I've closed that particular concern form. During the month of February, there have been 4 new and still open concern forms. First of which had to do with gluten intolerance and support of residents who have such intolerances by the dining services people. We're looking into that. I understand Dave Standley is communicating with that resident and with the chair of dining services. Number 4, poor access was alleged for urgent medical appointment needs. It's alleged that understaffing in the medical center is the result of difficulty for people with urgent needs to get quick response and an appointment. Marie Barry is our RAC liaison who is looking into that particular challenge. Number 4, since October, there has been poor live broadcast of services and other meetings in the chapel. That is, the live broadcast is garbled. It's not a clear image. It's a frustration for those who want the service. It's been going on for some time. It took a while to find out what the problem was. The problem was that the equipment supporting that feature had become timed out. It just got tired. Right, tired. That's a good. In any event, first it took some time to find out what the problem was. Then it took time to collect 3 proposals, 3 bids to correct the problem. I was told 10 days ago we did receive the 3rd bid, and now we can progress. I think we have selected a contractor I don't have a schedule for implementation, but I'd be surprised if in a month's time we didn't have better news for you with respect to that problem. The other problem had to do with the catering room in here. It was used, or has been used, since the Windsor kitchen floor project resulted in there no longer being movies to be shown in the Fireside Lounge. The Fireside Lounge movies now are shown, I believe, Thursdays and maybe Saturday evenings here in the catering room. The problem has been it's done at night. There is no audiovisual professional staff present. A projector bulb blew out, and so the shows could not be provided. However, the bulb has been replaced. One remaining problem had to do with lines connecting this podium and this desktop with the equipment in the back room. That fix has been corrected because it works today. It had been a problem for those who come to the photography club. Now, number 42, this was originated as a concern on the part of two residents who felt that electric mobility vehicles were moving through the campus too often at too great a speed. The concern was taken to a resident life coordinator who looked into it with management, and the response from management was a significant disappointment for the residents, and so they filed a concern form. Barbara Blanford is our RAC liaison in this area, and she will be looking to solve this misunderstanding. All four are open, and I did skip one point that I wanted to make with respect to the poor AV service connected with number 41. That concern form came to us as anonymous. It's really a disservice to us not to put your name down on a concern form. We do not share the name of the individuals who file concern forms with us, except with the manager to whom the resident had gone to and the resident themselves. Knowing who the resident is who files the concern form gives us someone to go to fully understand what the complaint is. If you're going to be anonymous, it really ties us up a bit. And please keep that in mind in the future when you're preparing concern forms. And that's the conclusion of my summary of concern form status for the month of February.
Are there any questions on the concern forms? Okay, then we're going to have Dick still stay up at the podium, and he is going to be talking to you about capital items.
Thank you. Each year, management solicits from we residents ideas for capital items to be considered in preparation for the budget for next year. By way of definition, a capital item for your consideration is something that's a desirable new object, a tool, or a capability that costs at least $2,500, but which isn't subject to life cycle replacement. And an example of life cycle replacement is the roofs. Roofs over time deteriorate, and General Services understands and does make repairs and replacements of things like roofing and paving. Ideas for life cycle are not as interesting or helpful as the other types of capital items. So please understand, this is not a request for financial information. It's a request of management for our ideas of what we'd like to have here that we don't have. They're looking for ideas. By way of explanation of what the ideas could be, I'll go through a summary of last year's capital items. or the campaign itself, I should say, we received 15 suggestions fine suggestions from the men's group. They were on this case early last year in January and February. We received 65 suggestions from you people. Our sources were RAC desks manned by RAC staff in the lounges of the 3 neighborhoods. Also, there are 3 drop boxes that were used in the 3 neighborhoods. After resolving duplicates among the 80 ideas that we received, we came up with 31 unique capital item ideas. 22 were true capital item ideas. 9 we ranked higher priority. 6 were medium priority, and 7 were relatively lower priority. There were 9 others that were actually current projects, ongoing projects that were being taken care of, or they were not true capital items, but we decided they were original or interesting enough to be shared with management. So we had a total of 31 that we presented in writing to management, and we reviewed them in detail for you people at a RAC meeting last May. Some time ago, we requested a response from management as to what they had done with our recommendations. Thus far, I have in writing from our executive director a summary of their responses to the high priority items. The first of which was, briefly, install community-wide Hi-Fi. And the answer to that was that will be integrated into the long-range strategic plan. The second one was to install GPS on campus shuttle buses. That will not be in this year's budget, but it will be considered by a group that's looking into ways to provide this capability enterprise-wide. And when we use the term enterprise-wide, we mean all 18 communities, like Brooksby Village, that are members of the enterprise that is managed by national senior campuses. Next, complete the installation of all automatic doorways. There are 33 doorways here. The response from management is that this year, doors 4, 11, 24, and 33 will be automated. That will bring it to a total of 27 out of 33. That is, this year, not all doors will be automated, but 27, and it seems like they're doing 4 per year. For your information, door 4 is at the cliff end of Orchard View. Number 11 is at the waist, connecting Felton Crossing with Westwind Terrace. There's another doorway immediately opposite that faces into a smaller parking lot. Door 11 faces into a much larger parking lot. Number 24 is located in the Liberty Place end of Baldwin Court. And 33 is at the far end of Cortlandt, nearest the lower pond. Finally, now, replace upholstered chairs and sofas in the Kingsbury Lounge. The problem there has been the sofas and chairs, many of which are too low in the lounge. It makes it difficult for residents who are sitting in them when called for dinner to get up and out of the lounge chairs and so forth. Fortunately, the correction will be made to that problem in this year's budget. There will be new, more comfortable, higher seating installed. Next, a request to purchase a campus bus with a ramp. And the need for the ramp is alleged to have been because the one shuttle bus we have here on campus that does have a ramp isn't always working and in service. There's a need for a ramp because there are residents who use a walker who cannot go upstairs. They use the ramp and their walkers to get into the shuttle buses. So when the ramp shuttle bus breaks down, they don't have campus transportation. That seems sad. And the new shuttle bus has been put in this year's budget. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a ramp in it. I don't know how that solves the problem of the et cetera, et cetera. I'll save you the time of listening. But the ninth capital item relates to this. I'll say a little bit more on the topic when I get to it. So we've got another page. And next, a request to upgrade the appearance in the town center lobby. It's where people come to Brooksby Village for the first time. Many residents feel that it doesn't present a good appearance. Looks perhaps like a railroad station. We were told by management that it will be taken care of to an extent in this year because design of town center is going to be the work of an architect this year. Next year, we may see some actual implementation and improvement of the railroad station. Next was a request to improve use of cell phone, to have better signal strength. And the problem was some residents here, I understand, have difficulty using their cell phones from their apartments. The answer is that a booster option will be considered when campus-wide Wi-Fi capability is installed. So the relief will not come soon, but it will come eventually. Finally, next to last, replace or reupholster town center chairs. It's included in the long-range plan, but management also noted with appreciation our recommendation that the chairs be covered such that they are not water receptive. It thought that perhaps some people come in from outside when it's been raining and they sit down and the chairs are wet, but there may be another reason. So on and so forth. So that will be taken into consideration. And finally, equip the lift on the bus for walker usage. This is kind of a substitute for the loss, temporary loss of a ramp in the shuttle bus. It is thought by some that, well, they should be able to walk onto the lift platform with their walkers and have something to hold on to, and thereby be steadily lifted into the shuttle bus. Well, unfortunately, there are many regulations covering what may be done to, on, and with a lift. And the administration is looking into that. It may be a solution to not having a second shuttle with a ramp. They promised to keep in touch with us and let us know what the progress is. I've been here for quite some time, may have bored you to tears, but much of what I've said you've asked for. Although, with respect to capital items, we're asking you for your help. Please share your ideas with us through our listening post and so forth. I do have, finally, a schedule that we'll be following for this capital items campaign. March 4th, today, I'm outlining the plan, and this month, between the 5th and the 29th, we'll be soliciting capital item suggestions from you. Via the listening posts, we will be inviting input from the men's and women's group, and we'll have input from the drop boxes once again. 1 month from now, at our next RAC meeting, I will brief our progress. On April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we will have capital item RAC chats that we will have in the music rooms and in a reserved meeting room, reserved time for residents to come and meet with RAC members to discuss their ideas about capital items. On April 19th, on the 12th, we've got to meet a special group within the RAC will meet to develop a unique set of capital items. We get many duplicates. We need to come up with a merge non-duplicate set. On the 19th, or about a week later, we will allocate as best we can priorities to the capital item suggestions that we've received. Then in the week 26th to 30th, we'll do a final review, then deliver the product to management. And on the May 6th RAC meeting with you residents, we will brief you with the results. At long last, I'm ready for questions. Yes, Ken. Ken Kramer, please. And we once in a while do ask that those of you who can, when you have a question or something to say, please rise and tell us your name. That makes it easier for us to make a record of what's said. Thank you, Ken.
I have a basic question, Dick. My name is Ken Kramer. Will there be a form available at the RAC meetings, chats, to describe your suggestion? And will that also be applicable to a group making suggestions?
Yes, I plan to offer to meet with the leaders of the men's and women's group to go through a plan to provide more specific guidance. It's most important that when we get a recommendation for something, we also get the rationale behind it. And that helps us understand what sort of priority to attach to it. And thank you, Ken.
Well, thank you. Now we're going to hear from Marie Barry. She is the liaison to the medical center.
There was another question.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Who has the
Barbara
question?
Hooper, I think, raised her hand.
I have a
Oh.
question, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand. Can you just say who you are, please?
Oh.
Barbara.
Louise Netton, and I have a question about these buses. Right now, I don't have need the services, but I'm kind of confused. In other words, if somebody has a walker and cannot walk up the stairs to the bus, there's no way they can use a bus? Is that what I'm hearing? And what is the rationale that we're not going to get a bus with a ramp?
That's my understanding of a situation when the shuttle bus, the single shuttle bus with a ramp, is not available. And Barbara Hooper had her hand up some time ago, and John Evans has his hand up.
I think you ought to check again with transportation, because the last time I heard about this discussed, it may have been at a general services chat, I'm not sure, that there is the capability of using a wheelchair, which is available on the bus, taking it down, putting the person in it, putting them on a ramp, bringing it up, taking their walker in, and doing the same thing on the other end. That's what I heard some time ago. If that's not true anymore, then okay.
I think the wheelchairs are supposed to be in the clubhouses at the front desks.
Please, I have the chair. Respond to John. Thank you for reminding me, John. I had received that information, but I had not remembered it. As far as I know, it is still true that there be a wheelchair available on the local shuttle bus. Thank you.
I just wanted to know, you have drop boxes up there. Are these at the desk at the, for suggestions, to put in your suggestions for capital improvement items?
Yes, Barbara Hooper. There are about, I think, 4 drop boxes at the receptionist's desk in each community. One of them presently is blank, but when I get organized, the blank drop box will have a label on it saying this is for residents capital items suggestions. It's just not up there yet. It's just the same way we did it last year. Oh my God, looks like we're done.
I'm double checking here. Any more questions? Okay, so now we're going to hear from Marie Barry for fairly new residents. She's the liaison to the medical center.
And obviously, can everybody hear me? Okay. As we've all heard, Dr. Acker has made a family decision, and she is going to have to resign in 3 months. During that time, up until May 31st, she will still be providing full-time care. And obviously, there'll be a farewell reception for somebody who is as popular as she is. And we wanted to notice that the key criteria for her successor in the recruitment process will include a physician who is not only very well qualified medically, but also has a strong sense of compassion. And then for the second major position in the medical center, the recruitment process is still underway to replace Judd Schofield as the practice administrator. And while there have been some candidates, there have been none yet that meet Brooksby criteria. So that in the interim, the regional Erickson practice administrator, Karen Marciano, is actively working to support the medical center. And she is increasingly active in training the office staff to address the scheduling problems and the slow response to phone calls that were noted in that number 40 concern form. The reason for that is, as you know, the medical center policy is to see either on the same or the following day a resident who calls in sick in the morning and needs to be seen. And that applies to people who have a primary care physician in the medical center or who have the, what is it called? The one that you see a physician once a year, you provide all your medical records and update them regularly. And
That's the Care Path program, Marie.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the name of that. I should have written it down, right. And then the doctors all keep at least one slot or maybe another one that are empty for that purpose. However, if all of the slots are filled, somebody else has called in and made the application first or made the appointment first, and then in that case, a person will usually be seen by a nurse practitioner. And then generally, that works very well. But there have been a few concerns recently. So, yeah, Karen Marciano and I had a fairly long conversation the other day, and she asked if you let me know that you've had a problem, then I will forward the information to her. So if that's the case, if you want to just give me a note today or leave a message in my cubby or call on the phone, then I will make a note of that, give it to her, and then she will be in touch with you. So you could also call the medical center and ask to leave a message for her, but I would suggest that you do what she had suggested and contact me first. And then in order to address the role of the nurse practitioners and have it better understood, we're scheduling a TV interview with the 3 nurse practitioners. And I think you'll find that very helpful in really coming to understand their role. And then finally, having to do with the flu status, while it's still at a high level of flu incidence in Massachusetts, we've been very fortunate at Brooksby where we only have one person who is an employee who currently has had the flu. And of course, we can attribute that to the endeavors, the major endeavor that the medical center has been making, and also the fact that this year's vaccine has been more effective than last year's. So Are there any questions you might have? And if you want to talk to me about any concerns you've had on scheduling or slow response, please see me after the meeting.
There's a question over there.
I'm Bob Hendricks. A suggestion in looking for the replacement for Dr. Acker. Dr. Patel is board certified in palliative care. I'm not sure that having only one doctor with that board certification is adequate, and I would suggest that in looking for a replacement, board certification of palliative care might be a very good requirement for the replacement.
Thank you. I've seen the recruitment form. I believe it does require that, but I'll have to check that and be sure. I'll get back to you. Any other question?
Okay, now, oh, there is one in the back.
I'm very concerned about the medical center. I've been here 3 years. We've had 4 administrations people that have left. Now we have, this will be my 3rd doctor. I have Dr. Acker, so when she leaves, I'll have a 4th doctor. I just wonder, is anybody looking into the job descriptions? Maybe they're too much, maybe they're too demanding, maybe people don't want to come here. It's just a concern that I have that there's such a turnover. It's such a turnover in this medical department. Is anybody looking into if there are some internal problems that need to be taken care of?
Well, there's no question that that's true. In this particular time, both Dr. Acker and Judge Schofield are leaving for personal reasons, so that's something that I'm not sure just how much that policy would be good, but certainly that is a problem. I didn't get your name.
I'm Louise Netton, and yes, personal reasons, but it's very easy to say personal reasons, but are there some reasons that are making them leave because they're saying it's personal reasons?
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear your name.
Oh, I get my name.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
If there are no other questions, we're going to move on to Barry, who is the liaison to continuing care. Barry?
Thank you, Joan. Today, we've been trying to familiarize you with some of the services and some of the people over at Continuing Care. So today, we'll continue with that. We're going to meet Luann Shine, who is responsible for the memory care unit. Just as an aside, the memory care unit has 32 beds. It is full, so there aren't any extra beds. There is a proposal to the state to add extra beds from skilled nursing, which hopefully would fix it, and that's pending, whatever that means. So I'd like to introduce you to Luann Shine. I'm Barry Warner, and I'm the liaison, RAC liaison to Continuing Care. And I thank you for joining us. Today we'll have the pleasure of learning about memory care. And our special guest today is Luann Shine, who is the manager of memory care. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
So first I'd like to ask you just a little bit about yourself so people get to see who you are, you know, what's happened, and how you came to be manager here of memory care.
So originally, when I was back in school, I went to grad school for clinical psychology and counseling.
stayed home for a number of years with my children, went back to work in a traditional assisted living residence, which we had a few people with some memory disorders.
Right.
And that's when I think my interest was sparked. They just were near and dear to my heart, and I ended up sort of going in a little bit of a different direction, focusing, learning as much as I could about memory disorders. So before I came to Brooksby, I've been here about 2.5 years. My position was executive director at assisted living specializing in memory disorders. So this position is similar but a little bit different.
What attracted you to working with people with memory challenges?
Well, I think I just saw just the situation with them. You know, working, doing counseling before, I saw how difficult it was for the family members, just getting their mind around what this disease is and what it meant and how to deal with it. And the residents themselves are, people that, have given so much, in their lifetime. And I just felt that we needed to do the best that we could to give them the dignity that they deserve at this point in their life. I think maybe with my parents, I had very dear parents and, other family members that, maybe didn't have Alzheimer's, but had contributed a lot, and I saw just what it was like for them when they got older. I thought anything I could do, to help better their lives was, I was interested in.
Oh, thank you. Wonder what your philosophy is in working with this population, and how does that impact the operation itself?
Mm-hmm. Well, my philosophy is in line with Erickson's, which is for memory care, it's a person-centered approach. So we try to, in many different areas, specialize just what is important for that one person. So we have a new initiative which is called the Holistic Assessment, excuse me, and that is when a resident's moving in, we try to gather as much information as we can about their past history, what they did, what their upbringing was like, what were their interests then, interests now, that sort of thing, and what their preferences are. If someone with memory impairment can't let you know, I really would like to be left alone for half an hour in the morning and have coffee in my room. But maybe the family members can tell us that. So we're able to provide care that's person-centered. It's not just, one size fits all. So we really, try to implement that as best we can.
Yeah, when I visited last year, I was struck by, number one, how people had their own room,
Yeah.
and how sensitive the staff was to the needs of people there.
Yep, everyone is very home-like. That's what we try to let families know. It's not an institutional setting. It is, everyone has their own furniture. They can decorate it, hang as many things on the walls as they want. So we really want the resident to feel comfortable in the room and to recognize when they're in the room that they are at home.
How do you determine whether someone's a suitable candidate for memory care as opposed to some of the other alternatives?
Well, generally, the first criteria would be having memory impairment that is interfering with their life at this time. So we don't want someone that is so early on in the disease that they would not be comfortable on the memory care floor, because it is a secure floor. So that is step number one, that they do have the memory impairment. But we also want to make sure they would benefit from living on the memory care neighborhood. So we want to make sure it's a secure neighborhood, which then gives them the freedom to explore the whole neighborhood. We're really sort of, opening up their world a little bit, instead of closing it down. So if they can ambulate and take part, explore the neighborhood, take part in activities. You know, sometimes as people, the disease progresses, sometimes that's a little too overstimulating.
What can, very briefly, what could families do to help you out and to help their loved ones?
I look at families as a partnership, both ways. I hope they look at the staff as their partner in caring for their loved one. So they can be the historian, they can give us the information about the resident that we are unable, you know, we don't have access to. And then just partner with us as time goes on to make sure that they're getting the care that they deserve. You know, and any concerns, I think most families experience that we all have open door policies. And the staff is very regular staff, a lot have been there for years, and they truly treat the residents as family.
Right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing this information with us.
Thank you.
And so that was fabulous. I also want to thank everyone in the audience for your time, and hope you learned a lot. And so thank you for joining us. I'll take questions, but I have another comment to make first. It was on a different topic. There's a person who works at continuing care. Her name is Amy Azevedo. And Amy's responsibility is to follow up on people when they go to the hospital. So she'll check up. She'll also be an advocate. When you are taken, or when someone is taken to the hospital from Brooksby itself by ambulance, security automatically informs Amy that you're there so she can follow up on you. However, if you have a scheduled event in the hospital, Brooksby has no way of knowing unless you inform them. So if you have a planned visit, make sure that you or let's say you have to go to the hospital because of something that happens somewhere else, make sure you or your family contacts Amy. And I'll just give you an example, which is my own personal example. I'm leaving probably before this meeting's over because I have such a scheduled appointment tomorrow. What was I going to say? So please make sure. So I talked with Amy last week, and I said, you know, Amy, I'm concerned because I may have to go to continuing care, and they may release me before 3 days, which means Medicare won't cover it. And she said, I will work with the hospital and lobby for you to stay at least 3 days. So there's that kind of concern. So please take advantage of that. It's a wonderful service. Thank you. Ken, you have
Barry, you're thanking us for being here, but I think we want to thank you for bringing this interview process to the RAC meeting. I think inviting Amy would be a big plus as well, if you haven't already done that.
Yes.
I think it's a great tool to have interviews here, even though we have them on 919. I think it's also helpful to have them at the RAC meeting. Thank you very much for doing that.
And Barry, I have a comment as well. Actually, it's a question. What is the most effective way to get in touch with Amy? Because the first thing we're going to do is to forget her name.
Well, I'll ask you to remember
Beat
Amy.
Medical Center.
Okay. I will ask you to remember Amy.
Not going to happen.
Let me finish. And call the front desk. If you don't remember Amy, tell the front desk why you're calling.
Thank you.
Bob Hendricks. It's a two-part question. First is, you indicated that memory care is full. Do you have any idea what the excess pressure is? How many of our residents need to be in memory care and have to go elsewhere because we do not have capacity? And secondly, same question with regard to long-term care, because I understand it is also full, and therefore by moving beds from long-term care or skilled nursing care to memory care, you may be reducing pressure on the memory care unit, but you're increasing the pressure on the nursing care. So the question, I guess, is how are we balancing our needs for both services, and do we in fact need to be putting in requests in our capital equipment or our capital improvements for increased capacity of one, the other, or both of these critical services for our residents?
Well, thank you for the question, Mel. So let me just give you an idea of what's there and what the population is. So there are 32 memory beds. They're essentially full. There are 92 assisted care beds. They're essentially full. There may be a vacancy here or there. There are 104 skilled nursing beds. Last time I talked about it with them, about 80 of those beds were occupied. So there is a capacity in skilled nursing. Also, some of the memory care patients are kept up in skilled nursing because it's in a secure place where they can be kept and watched. I believe in that case they are charged not the skilled nursing cost per day, but the memory care cost per day. I hope that answered your question. And so the proposal to the state is to take the third floor of Rose Court and convert it to memory care, which would change 44 beds. I think they're aware of, what they need, and are trying to work that out. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you.
You, Barry. Now, the favorite part is food, so I'd like to introduce David Stanley. He's the liaison to the dining services. Dave?
Thank you, Joan. Check my watch. Good morning. Green Tree Cafe renovation project. Dick Richmond will speak to the schedule for that because that's a general services program. The dining service program plan for that activity, which is called Phase 3 of the Town Center project, is going to be described in detail in a written document that you will find in your cubbies shortly, prior to the closure of Green Tree Cafe. When Green Tree Cafe closes, the impacts are going to include that the Chef's Corner will close, which means that for the town center dining, the number of options available will be reduced. Breakfasts will be served in Harvest Grill. There'll be takeout lunch and dinners from the Town Center craft room using the Windsor menu. The lunch arrangement at Windsor will include a hot service line and a cold service line, i.e. sandwiches. That service now in Green Tree is used by staff and contractor employees on a cash basis. That will continue, and seating will be retained so that they will have a place to eat. There will be a register that will take resident numbers, resident charges, meal plan numbers, resident charges, charge cards, and cash. Home delivery will continue, but it will be limited to the Windsor menu. And you will soon be seeing a new menu form. It's vertical rather than horizontal, and it's much easier to read, and it is being rolled out by Dining Service. At Windsor Restaurant, there will be no change in the service that is presently there for dinner. No change in the schedule, no change in seating arrangements. The takeout for dinner will be available in the craft room, served out of what used to be the private dining room. Soup or broth is available at Windsor on request. If the server doesn't offer it, ask. Similarly, if you want rolls and you would like a plate to put them on, since you were taught as a child not to eat off the tablecloth, those small plates are available at the service line, beginning and end, or can be provided by your server. Dietary restrictions. There have been a number of comments and questions and requests regarding a broad range of dietary restrictions and how to meet those needs. Talking not at a town center limited scope, but looking at campus-wide dining services, there are informal, individualized procedures that are in place at each restaurant to address particular needs of persons with dietary restrictions. And I'm not talking about dietary preferences. It's not a case of, I don't like steak, or I do like steak. It's a case of, I can't eat steak, or I have to have a gluten-free menu, or I must not have salt, or whatever. The affected resident should discuss this matter with the manager at the specific restaurant, and arrangements will be made to address that person's particular needs. And there are, on the negative side, there are no plans to make major changes in the dining capabilities, that is the kitchen capabilities. Brooksby Village is not going to go to a gluten-free service, period. That's going to be just the individual situation. Now, speaking more directly to Windsor Restaurant, since the Green Tree Chef's Corner will no longer be available, any special requests are going to have to be addressed through the Harvest Grill Kitchen, which is serving Windsor. But there is a commitment to meet those requests, and you should not be bashful, embarrassed, or feel that you're imposing on the dining staff by making such a request. You're entitled to it. I would also suggest that if you need to know what's in your chosen menu, you use the web page and the My Nutrition page. It's quite informative, and you can go through it and get a pretty good idea of what you are being fed or what you need to avoid eating. Couple of dining service announcements. You heard that the campus executive chef is leaving, has left, actually, gone to Erickson Living Management with greater responsibility. The executive chef position in the town center kitchen is in a search process. And that person is not needed right at the moment because we have no kitchen. Mary Blanchard, the assistant manager at Harvest Grill, has transferred to continuing care. And hopefully that move will be one way to address the observed dissatisfaction or satisfaction level with dining service in continuing care. Menu changes. Ash Wednesday and Lent, coming up, day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, Shrove Tuesday. At Ash Wednesday and during Lent, there will be an increased fish and non-meat offerings on Ash Wednesday and on Fridays during Lent. Now, for those of you who are mathematically inclined, Pi Day is March 14th. That's spelled P-I, and it's the infinite number that begins 3.1416 and is the ratio between the circumference and the radius of a circle. And that's Pi Day. So, on that day, there are going to be special desserts, PIEs. So, look forward to it. I just mentioned format changes, showed you the list, but I have a public service demonstration. Some of you may have had problems with the milk cartons, opening them. Let me show you something. It requires a pair of scissors. And you start where it says open, and you cut across to the middle, okay? Put the scissors away, fold that back, and voila. It opens. Got it? Thank you. Any questions? Question in the back? Those cartons, by the way, are no longer recyclable.
I have a question. My name is Peg Russell. And what is the best way to deal with a discrepancy in your meal plan numbers? Now that we can check very easily online, and we check most every day, if we find a discrepancy, do we call dining services? Do we go to the manager? What's the best procedure?
Call dining services. That's a continuing problem. It probably has several causes. It would be most effectively created if dining service could utilize a handheld device and read your tag. But so many of you don't carry your tags around with you. I think that's a mistake, because if you fall down in the corridor, the best way to determine who you are is by reading your tag. And if it's back in your apartment, it doesn't do anybody any good. But that step would be a major improvement in tracking and in just making sure that the correct numbers are charged to the correct person all the time. That, unfortunately, is not in the capital plan. So your option is called dining service, before the end of the month if you can.
Priscilla Cobb. When we go to the takeout situation that would formerly have been attributed to Green Tree, are we going to be going back to the eco containers, the green containers that are recyclable? And if so, where do we drop them off?
So far as I know, the answer is no. We will be staying with the styrofoam clamshells for the time being. The reason for that is that, and the reason for the use of plastic plates and the attempt to use plastic utensils, fortunately abandoned, is that everything has to be washed at Harvest Grill. We don't have washing capability anymore in town center until the kitchen project is finished. So we will continue to use the disposable containers, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. And when the kitchen is back fully in service, probably in about a month, then we will return to normal in Windsor Restaurant.
Dave?
For the sake of time and getting every liaison report covered, people that still have questions for Dave, would you please ask them after the meeting, or if we are fortunate to have a
Sure.
few extra minutes, because we still have other reports to share. I'm sorry, but it's important. So we're going to hear from Cindy Brown right now. She is Sales and Marketing Liaison.
Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, now I know everyone tells me that I speak too quickly, so if I do, raise your hand if you think I'm speaking too quickly, okay? First of all, I want for those who have not heard, Stephanie Graves had a baby girl on Saturday, February 23rd, and her name is Savannah. She will be, Stephanie will be out for about 2 months, and Steve St. Cyr and Gina Fernandez will fill in for her. I also want to make you aware that my goal in reporting to you as RAC liaison is to focus not on numbers, but on changes in the sales process, and in particular on improvements such as the new welcome home process that I described in January. And of course, you will get the numbers from Sue Davis at the town hall meetings each month, so there's no need for me to go over them. Since learning about the welcome home process, I've spoken to Kara Smith, a resident care coordinator, and Nate Kennedy, the decorating consultant, and learned how they are involved first in the pre-resident meetings and then in following new residents through their move-in and later if necessary. Another improvement in the sales office is how they handle out-of-state moves. Steve is now the point person for all out-of-state moves. This means that the incoming resident can contact Steve with any question, and Steve will interface with the appropriate person to get answers. Also, the sales office has developed an out-of-state move checklist. That's what this is here, and I know you can't all see it. But they review this with all of the folks moving from out of state to determine what kind of information they need, such as how to register their car, how to get a driver's license, how to get insurance, etc. And I think we still need to do more for people moving from out of state, and I'm exploring ways to do so. So if you have any ideas, I certainly would appreciate them. An area of concern which I've become aware of recently is that some people move to Brooksby sight unseen. In other words, they have never visited Brooksby before they come. These moves, I assume, are primarily from out of state and are usually arranged through family members. If a family member picks up the apartment key and perhaps sets up the apartment for the new resident, it is very important that the new resident gets appropriate briefing and support from our staff when they arrive. So this is something Barbara and I are going to be looking into more closely. In conclusion, I'd like to talk to as many new residents as possible about their sales and move-in experience, and your input will really help improve the sales and move-in process and can help new residents get off to the best possible start here at Brooksby.
So please stop by after this meeting, or email me or phone me, and I'd look forward to your input. Thank you. Any questions? I'm sorry. Any questions?
I'm Johanna Hill, and I have a question of the, what would you call it, the Welcome Home. What is the Welcome Home program?
Well, it just is referring to, the welcome home process refers to the fact that their process now, it used to be that people would go directly to the sales office when they got here to move in, and they would get their key from the sales office, and they would not have yet had contact with a resident care coordinator, and possibly even probably that they have with a decorating person. But the whole idea is the resident care coordinator gets involved much earlier in the process and meets them before they even have finished their application for being a resident, so that they start early on, and they even help that person determine what additional services they may need when they come to Brooksby, rather than this being done after the fact. So that's really the concept of getting general services involved with the person earlier, and getting the resident care coordinators involved with the prospective resident earlier in the process. That's what they're calling that the welcome home process.
Thanks, Cindy. And now we're going to hear from the gentleman who has all the money, Steve Parkhurst.
Yeah, thank you. I think Brooksby's got all the money. I wish I did, but anyway. This report's, my slides. Can't even see my own slide, but that's all right. This is going to be a brief report because Mike Francis will be reporting in some detail about our year-end financials at the next town meeting later in the month. So I guess my role is to assure everybody that Brooksby continues to be in sound financial condition. We had gross income last year of approximately $75 million. The occupancy rate continues to be very high, 97% or more. And it could be that 1 percentage point amounts to 7 units. So if you take half that, if we get, say, to 97.5, the 4 units, assuming income of, say, $50,000 from that unit, that's another $200,000 we will make for probably not much more expense. So we're in a sort of a leveraged situation, and the occupancy rate continues very high. And that's about all I'll think, because Mike will really cover this in some detail in a couple of weeks. Now, as far as the treasure chest is concerned, the sales for last year were down slightly from the year before. I think most of that was because the management asked us to try to reducing the prices in mid-month in order to save space. That was not successful, and the policy has been reversed. And in January, the income was up. It was, about $8,700. It was several $100s more than last year. So we'll probably run between $90,000 and $100,000 treasure chest, which is a very good contribution that they make, not only for the items that are made available, for the money that they raise that they can distribute to the other charities here. So that's, I will be the listening post representative on Wednesday at Kingsbury. So if I look forward to chatting with any of you there who will be in the area. Yeah, thanks.
Any questions for Steve? I think now Barbara Blanford is the liaison for resident life.
Good morning again. I have talked with all 3 resident life, can you hear me? Resident life coordinators, and reviewed their role. Their primary role is to work with residents, significant others, and family members to provide support, education, and referrals as needed. They want to be proactive rather than reactive. So they want to get involved early with people who are having problems or changes in their situation. They do the Welcome Home program, which Cindy has covered. There are a lot of things here on campus that kind of overlap between different liaison roles, so I'm not going to go into that part today. They want to make sure that resident needs in independent living are met safely and successfully. They will watch for decline physically, mentally, emotionally in people and make referrals as needed. They will educate people about resources available both here at Brooksby as well as outside of Brooksby and how to obtain them. They try to get the resident or the resident's family involved in making those referrals rather than doing it themselves, but they will if it becomes necessary. They will meet with families and significant others as well as the resident about challenging problems to help facilitate and guide difficult meetings and conversations. They will help people fill out legal documents, but they will not sign them. That is a Brooksby regulation that staff not sign legal documents that need to be witnessed. They help with transitions to higher levels of care. And most importantly, they really want to hear any concerns about residents that other residents or family members have. Resident safety, changes in mental status, people who seem to be having frequent falls, somebody who needs looking in upon. Maybe one of your neighbors is already in a weaker state, if you want to put it that way, and now they've developed pneumonia. They may need more services during this period of time. So they really want to know from residents when something does not seem right. It's really important to talk to them. They are not going to push people into continuing care if people don't want to be there and their needs can be met safely in independent living. They also don't want residents enabling other residents by taking on more care for them than you can realistically provide. We are all getting older, and while we want to help people, we need to do that in a successful way. And if you feel like you're just being drawn into somebody's care more and more and more, you really need to talk to the resident service coordinators. They do not have to tell a resident who has talked to the resident service coordinator, so they can go see somebody without bringing your name up. Their work is confidential. They can say that, yes, somebody is on their radar, but if a resident has not given them permission to give out information, following HIPAA standards for medical care, they really cannot talk to us about what's going on with a person. They do collaborate with other Brooksby departments as needed, including the medical center, where they have frequent resident huddles to talk about people that are in more tenuous situations. It includes pastoral services, continuing care, security, and other departments as needed. They also help with pet registration and regulations, and they collaborate, facilitate, and assist with some of the support groups at Brooksby Village, such as low vision, Parkinson's, caregivers, and the new group that's now being formed, the chronic pain support group. So talk to the resident care coordinators if you have any concerns at all. Thank you.
We're going to hold questions for Barbara, and remember, Dave, I think there were a few other hands up, and we'll stay after the meeting. But we have one more report, and that is Ann. And just a point of information before I show the TV interview that she has with Reverend Chad Kidd, because March is Diversity Month. Even though we celebrate diversity throughout the year, we do highlight March in particular. So there's a nice interview for the last 5 minutes, and then we will stay to answer any questions. But the students who are graduating this year are going to be wearing special shirts. So please feel free to ask them what schools they have applied to or have actually been accepted to, and they'd be happy to talk to you about it. And remember, we are having the scholarship fund. Last year, for the first time, people were so generous that each student was able to get $8,000. In the past, it's been $6,000. So we have our fingers crossed that people will continue to be generous for this particular charity for these students. Many of them are first time in their family going on to college. So we're going to end this with seeing a TV interview by Ann and Reverend Kidd. Oh my God, I haven't done general services.
I'm Ann Nielsen. I'm the RAC liaison to Pastoral Ministries. And I've invited Chad to have a talk with me about Diversity Month. And I'd like to know, Reverend Chad, one of the goals of the Pastoral Ministries is to celebrate the diversity of all faith preferences and to sponsor opportunities for spiritual growth. I'd like you to talk about one specific thing, one of your goals, called Diversity Month. What was the impetus to start this?
Thanks.
And how do you develop all the different sessions that you have with it?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, that's it's great because you're right. That is one of our subset goals, and it fits with our mission of pastoral ministries being diverse on this campus. And it came about just because I'm passionate about the topic. And when I first started here 5 years ago, our residents were coming to me regularly and saying how much they appreciated the diversity of the pastoral offerings and what could we do more. And Brooksby had always done a diversity program of some sorts. And once I got here and expressed interest in the topic, they asked if I'd like to kind of spearhead and take over as the chair of that program. And so I've had a lot of fun over the years doing that. So my philosophy is that March is Diversity Month when we picked March, and we try for the whole month to have fun and also educational opportunities that address the topic of diversity in the broadest range that we could think of. And I've found that we have so many residents that are interested in diverse topics that I just started opening it up to the community.
Oh, you've done so well.
Thank you.
How have you managed to organize all this?
So that was my thought of once I knew that so many people were interested in the topic, rather than having a committee that works on it, the same people, I said, well, let's try something different and open it up and have several planning sessions and see who comes. And just open it up to people who are passionate about the topic and about the month and how we do, offer programs. So I just would schedule several sessions. We start way back in November or December to get ready for March. And we just see who comes. And people, residents and staff, attend those planning sessions and they bring their ideas. So somebody might come and say, I've always wanted to learn about racism in America. And so we think together as a group and say, all right, well, do we know anybody that's an expert on that topic? Can we find someone to bring in? Or is one of our residents an expert? And so it kind of grows from there. The first time we meet, we just throw out all the wild and crazy ideas we can think of. And then we start to hone them down and find out which ones are we most passionate about any particular year.
Yeah, well, it's so exciting. You've given me a copy of your schedule, and there's everything from jazz, jazz to talk about art,
Totally.
to something more serious
Right.
on racism.
We try to make it both a fun month with some really fun artistic things that are more just happy and give you a taste of diversity in that way. And then we've also done some sort of deeper things of looking at race or culture, looking at some of the maybe the blind spots that we have on diversity in our country or in our society. And those really, everything has been generated from the ideas of our residents and our staff that have come together and said, I'd like to learn about this, or I'd like to see this, and we try to make that happen.
My introduction to Diversity Month was last year. I came to Brooksby in March,
Oh, wow.
and I was walking through the bridges, and I saw all those flags, and I thought, ooh, this is wonderful.
Yes.
What is this all about? How did that start?
That's good. It made you ask the question. And that's another aspect of diversity is we talked about how can we make it known on campus that we're doing something special for the month. And we started with the flags, and that has a long, great story. The flags used to be used in the restaurants, usually during Olympics time. They decorate with the flags, and so we said, well, maybe we should use those in Diversity Month to what better representation of diversity than to show the world flags and the different cultures. So we started putting them up in the links, and they just add so much color and vibrancy. And
wonderful.
People comment. We've done it maybe 3 or 4 years now, and people just love it. So we'll be doing that again this year in March.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a resident favorite as well.
Yes, exactly.
Are there other resident favorites that you found out about?
Yes, well, one thing that we've done now, this might be the 3rd year we're doing it this coming March, is we have our Brooksby chefs create world cuisines and little tasting portions of foods from around the world. And so this year it's going to be at the end of the month, end of March, and we clear out the catering room, and we invite everyone to come, and it's free. And so, the neat thing about it is our chefs often will make food from their own heritage. So maybe their grandparents were from Germany or somewhere, and they have a long-standing tradition of a certain food in their family. So our chefs also get to impart their culture into the work, and it's just really fun to see people come and tasting foods they've never tasted before, and just having a blast. Hey, when you say there's food, people will show up, right? So that's been a favorite of Diversity Month for several years now. And every time we get to the planning sessions, I say, all right, group, should we do this again? And everyone says yes, yes.
Yeah, one thing that really interested me was the jazz. Now, how do you arrange that?
Well, this year, Reverend Judith is arranging for one of her Protestant worship services, the first Sunday in March. She's going to do a jazz worship service. And it's really in honor of Shrove Tuesday or Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras, which is going to be that week. And Mardi Gras is the day before Ash Wednesday. And so Ash Wednesday falls on the first Wednesday of March this year. And so it's a great tradition of sort of partying with lots of music and lots of food before you have to go into the fast, and kind of get ready for the season of Lent for Christians. And so she's bringing in, this year, the first Sunday in March, bringing in a jazz group that are going to do a lot of Mardi Gras type music. The choir's going to sing a really fun number, and it'll be a very interesting. So she's opening it up to the whole campus. Obviously, always open to anyone who wants, but really as part of Diversity Month, to come and see a different style of worship service, really.
And how do we hear about this? I know, of course, it's on the calendar of events, but are there other posters and things that you post?
So all of the diversity events will be in the master calendar, and what we try to do is make sure they're marked a certain way so that either with a symbol in the calendar or with just Diversity Month presents. And so people are able to see it all in there. We also have everything on scrolling on TV, both 918 and 919.
At the time it takes place, each event? Or?
Most everything is recorded live, and then also replayed. A lot of the programs are. That's a good point to mention, so people can watch on TV. I was thinking more also just the scrolling messages to let people know when calendar things are coming. So that's another way. And then they'll be up on the bulletin boards, a lot of the events on the bulletin boards and things like that. So a lot of different ways people can know what's going on.
That was just a brief part of the interview. It will be on 919, 918, so feel free to look at it. And I have to say, we obviously have shared so much today, but there's one person that I forgot to introduce, and that, of course, is Dick Richmond. He does have an update on general services for those people that can wait a few more minutes.
Thank you, folks. Yes. It has been not easy to collect information this past month on general services because they've been super busy and haven't been able to attend many meetings. I will say that Chris Massey, the Director of General Services, has not been in the office for a month. I normally meet with him to prepare for this meeting. And also Andrew Hounson, the Chief Engineer, 2 weeks ago, announced his resignation, and he's now left Brooksby Village for what he considers to be a better opportunity. That's bad news for us because he was so good at his responsibilities. Moving on, a Windsor kitchen floor upgrade is on schedule. Next week, a week from today, there will be a test of the curing of the concrete to make sure it's ready to receive the epoxy surface. If the concrete is not properly cured as a result of the test, they plan to move some boarding over the concrete, allowing it to continue to cure while they do other work in the kitchen area. Next, Green Tree Cafe will close for service on the evening of the 10th of March. Work by the contractor begins on March 13. I don't have any other specific details, questions for the work, or answers for the questions on continued work on Green Tree. Late news and surprising news is that the new windows will be installed in Neighborhood 2 mid-May to September. The surprise was Canterbury Court will be first, then Oxford Green. I say it's a surprise because the day before I was told, no, it was the other way around. There's no, I haven't heard any explanation, but my guess is the reason for Canterbury first is that this summertime, repaving will take place also in the smaller Canterbury parking lot. I think they want to get the windows done in Canterbury before the paving in the Canterbury parking lot begins. Of course, Oxford Green then will follow. Automatic doors, I briefed earlier this morning. There will be 4, and they'll be coming in this springtime. Beginning a week and a half from now, the Macintosh cooling tower installation will begin, and please be assured that cooling will still be available in the Macintosh buildings. They just will be using standard tap water for cooling, which in the wintertime is rather cool. Well, as I indicated, repaving will begin in mid-May. The Canterbury Loop will be first. That is the arrival area in front of Canterbury. And I'm sorry, the Kingsbury Loop will be repaved. And then after that, a smaller Canterbury parking lot will be done. They are known as Projects 1A and 1B for those who are really into the details. The Felton Crossing and the Canterbury Court Bridge, they have a new contract now to replace the heating, cooling, and air movement units in the bridge. Also, because the carpets are significantly aged, the carpets will be replaced. Replacement of the carpets will take place at nighttime, so not as to disturb the residents. However, the heating, cooling units must be done during the daytime. The equipment has been ordered. Installation date is pending. And finally, a note on current operations. People need to understand that cars are not cleared off of their snow unless and until at least 3 inches of snow have fallen and the snow has stopped. A reason for saying that is General Services have been pelted by questions of people who want their cars cleaned off, but it has still been snowing, or less than 3 inches of snow have fallen. They judge on the snowfall. A contractor on each parking lot is photographed measuring the depth of snow on the tops of several cars. The photographs are forwarded to General Services, and General Services decides whether or not there's sufficient snowfall to warrant having the flagged cars be cleaned. Thank you for listening.
So now the meeting is officially ended, but we will wait up here for any questions, and clearly I think we need to review. We perhaps wanted to share so much, we did too much. Thank you.